at this point. So, so thanks for being here. We're really happy today to have 3 speakers joining us. Nancy Kleiman is a senior instructor in the College of Pharmacy at the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences. And she is, of course, a pharmacist as well. So she'll be speaking about her experience. Amy Wong is a pharmacist and a graduate of the College of Pharmacy. And on a more personal note, I'm thrilled that Amy used to be one of our student staff members as well. It feels like not that long ago to me, but I suspect it's been a few years now. So anyway, welcome and thank you. Cheryl Lee is a student advisor in the College of Pharmacy and the program administrator. And Cheryl will be here to answer questions, not part of the formal presentation, but certainly questions about the program and I suspect about admission requirements. So thank you everybody for being here. I just want to spend 1 second to tell you a little bit about the career services. We're, like I said, up on the 4th floor. And our job is to help students make career decisions. It's a competitive world. There's tons of options, and some of you might be trying to go back and forth between different options or explore different options. So if you're ever in that position where you're not quite sure your path, or you want to look at plan B or alternative paths, or if you want to get experience to support a goal, or heck, if you just need a part-time or summer job, or you need resume help, we're there to help you. So after this presentation, I'll make sure you have contact information if you ever want to get hold of us to come and chat. So at this point, it looks like everybody's video is off, and I am going to turn it over to Nancy to start.
Okay, thank you very much. I will, hang on. Okay. All right, I'm very pleased to be here to speak with you today on behalf of the College of Pharmacy. I will cover kind of a big picture of pharmacy, and I'll let Amy speak about the day-to-day activities of pharmacy as well. So we'll just go through it like this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I want you to kind of reflect on whether pharmacy might be the right career for you. I'm sure Amy will talk a little bit about why she chose pharmacy as well. I'll go through some of the various career options because there's different ones that are available to us as pharmacists. And I'll outline some of the entrance requirements, and Cheryl Lee can speak to those as well. I will go through some of the requirements that you will need to be licensed as a pharmacist, and we'll go through a quick review of the 4-year PharmD program. This is the building that we currently reside in, and it is on the Bannatyne campus near HSC. So when I was putting this together, I wanted you to kind of think about what might be your reasons for considering becoming a pharmacist. And I know I chose to become a pharmacist a very long time ago. I had a career of over 40 years now. And I chose to become a pharmacist because I really like the science part of things. And it kind of intrigued me with the different types of opportunities there were about medications and how they worked in the body. Now it's very different why somebody might choose to become a pharmacist, but I want you to really kind of think about why you might want to become a pharmacist and your reasons for doing it. A big question is, have you ever met a pharmacist? And you're more likely community pharmacists and in a community pharmacy setting. So if you haven't met a pharmacist, pharmacists don't mind talking about their jobs at all. And if you're not busy, make an appointment with a pharmacist in the community and just see why they became a pharmacist and what their day-to-day functioning is, what they do every day, because it changes all the time as well. It's always a really good idea when you're looking at a new career is to kind of talk to people that are already in that career. And I'm sure Amy will help with this a little bit today. do you know what the career opportunities are for pharmacists? And that's really kind of important to kind of figure out as well, because it's not just one type of pharmacist that you can be, you can change your career. I started as a community pharmacist, that was my choice at the time, and ended up teaching at the university after owning a pharmacy as well. So I've had a very different career throughout my lifespan. I got this off the Canadian Pharmacist Association website, and it's just basically reasons for maybe choosing pharmacy as a career. Job mobility, stability is still prevalent. Mobility means that once you've written the final examinations, the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada exams, that you can go anywhere in Canada except Quebec. You have to write different exams to get into Quebec. There's new innovations in drug pharmacy all the time, and drug therapy, emerging evidence. All of those things are reasons that we become pharmacists, and we need to constantly keep updated with our knowledge as well. I found this somewhere, I can't remember where now, but it just kind of shows the different types of characteristics that are good in a pharmacist. And communication skills are extremely important. You need to be able to communicate with people about their medications, about any concerns they have, how are they taking their medications, how are they managing their healthcare. You need to also be able to speak with caregivers as well, so that's always important. Interpersonal skills are really important as well, because you're working in a very tight-knit group of people in a pharmacy, whether it be hospital or community, and you need to be able to get along with other people as well. Scientific aptitude is very important. Our college and our program is very science-based as well still. So that's one of the reasons I went in. I like chemistry. It's not so much chemistry anymore, but there's still quite a bit there. Computer skills, I think most of you probably have those already, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. It was kind of important when I graduated to be able to manage a computer, since they were very new then. You have to have a good memory as well. And you have to always want to be able to learn more. Our jobs as pharmacists don't stop the day we graduate. Our learning continues throughout our lifespan. And I always use the example with our pharmacy students. Imagine when I graduated in 1979, if I had never ever read anything after that, what kind of pharmacist would I be? I would not be a good pharmacist at all. I've listed some characteristics of a good pharmacist, and there's many, many more, and I've sort of highlighted this already. And I think the most important thing, and I've mentioned this, is dedicated to lifelong learning. I still continue to learn, even though I'm very close to retirement, and I hope to continue still learning after I retire as well. The big question, I guess, is what do we actually do? And we don't just count pills and put labels on and hand it to the person. It's a lot more than that. And we are a very integral part of the healthcare team. And without us as sort of the conduit between the patient and the other healthcare team members, there would be things missed, I'm sure. We consider ourselves the drug experts as well. We take 4 years of learning with medications and how they work in the body. And so we are the drug experts. And it's something to just keep in mind as pharmacists. We always remind pharmacy students to keep that in mind. We prevent, identify, and resolve medication-related issues. And it's not just sometimes it's medication interactions. It could be a lot of other things as well related to medications and how people are taking them and if they're taking them as well. We have an expanded scope of practice, and that is continuing to increase all over Canada. In Manitoba, we're fairly limited, but it is growing as to what we can do, and we can prescribe for some medications now as well. That is growing, and we'll continue to watch that and support that as it goes along. And throughout our program, we get students prepared and ready to be able to prescribe medications as that is changing. The big question is, where do we work? And we have a number of different places that pharmacists can be found. Community pharmacies, about 80% of our students will graduate and work in a community pharmacy just because there's more opportunities there. There are more and more opportunities for hospital pharmacies as well. It's a little more limited, but without a hospital pharmacist, there would be no medications going to wards and to nurses and doctors. So you'll see more and more of that. And a hospital pharmacist is a much more clinically based pharmacist. They are they're very focused on a particular area of the pharmacy. They might be in pediatrics, they might be in renal disease. So I consider them to be more specialized pharmacists. The community pharmacists are more of a generalist. We need to know a lot of different things as well. But there are some pharmacists who are specializing in specific areas as well, and they would be considered a specialist in that area too. We're seeing more and more pharmacists in primary care clinics, and there are a number of primary care clinics in the city that have hired pharmacists. A lot of the access centers now have a pharmacist there, or at least one. Pharmaceutical industry is limited here in Manitoba, but if you don't mind moving to Toronto or Quebec, pharmaceutical industry does hire pharmacists. They'll hire pharmacists as researchers or in preparation of material that they, educational material. The government has hired pharmacists as well. They look mostly at drug plans and what medications should be covered and should not be covered. Education is one thing that I do, and some of our pharmacists graduate and they go into research. You don't need to be a pharmacist to be going into research, but depends what type of research you choose. Clinical specialists are out there as well, and they will be just, they may be an extended practice pharmacist where they're just specializing in a particular area and they can prescribe for that area as well of practice. There are more and more pharmacy consultants as well. And I know of a few that are focused on a business aspect of whatever it could be in health promotion, healthcare. There's lots of different consultants as well. Family health clinics, you'll see more in Ontario. Here, they're more the primary care clinics. And we have had pharmacists that have worked in the military as well. Just have a little bit of visual here of some of the community pharmacists that are available. IDA, Counterwise, some of the Paragon, those are more independently owned. Guardian are more independently owned pharmacists. You'll find those sometimes in the rural areas. And then there's the big box ones as well. So. In hospital pharmacies, these are just some visuals of different pharmacies here in the city. And there's lots of rural pharmacies where there are hospital pharmacists as well. Primary care clinics, the two major ones are the Kildonan Medical Center, and there's one at St. Boniface, but any of the access centers are now having primary care clinics as well. And industry, like I said, you have to go down east pretty much for those areas of practice. You can go into graduate studies as well. And we have a few pharmacists that go into graduate studies, or if you want to focus on medications and delivery of medications, you can go in from different areas of study as well that are science-based. Some go through pharmacology, some go through, I forget what some of them are, they're more science-based, and you can apply to be a graduate student in our program as well. It just depends on what the focus is right now in our grad study program. And maybe Cheryl has a better idea of what some of the grad study ideas are. Research labs, these are just some of our research labs on our third floor of our building. That was pre-COVID. You can see they're all kind of close together. We've got the entrance requirements. This is the current fall 2021 entrance requirements. You need to complete 2 years of university with a total of 60 credits at this point. So February 3rd, that's passed now. So we're just looking at waiting to see how many students want to be able to apply to our program for this year. And that just gives you an idea of some of the what we're requiring. You also need to have an adjusted grade point average, and it's calculated out by admissions, and that's how it's calculated. And Cheryl Lee can speak to this more if you have questions. And the overall score is, our requirements are that we looked at the adjusted grade point average of 80% and 20% of a critical skills assessment, or what used to be called a critical skills essay. So our fall 2022 requirements are changing a bit. In high school, you need biology, chemistry, and math to be able to get in. And my suggestion is that you have a strong chemistry background, just because you will be required to take medicinal chemistry in our program. The changes will be that you'll need 48 credit hours over a approximately two-year period. That's probably the best way to do it. And you'll need an adjusted grade point average of 3 or higher. And in the past, applicants have got in with a bit higher than 3 for sure. This is just a list of different courses that are available, and all of this can be found in our bulletin, I believe, Cheryl, correct? Maybe not this stuff yet.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Yeah.
It will be available in the bulletin after March 1st in the new one.
Okay, thank you. In the 2022 requirements, we are looking at a Casper test as well. And you would need a greater than 1.5 standard deviation as listed here. All of these are new requirements that would probably apply to most of you that are here today. And that just goes through the adjusted grade point average calculation again. So your overall score for the 2022 would be 75% of the AGPA and a Casper test of 25%. We also have more specific categories of applicants. There's the Manitoba resident applicant. You would be a Manitoba resident, and then you would be able to apply. There is a Canadian Indigenous applicant pool as well, and we have opened it up. We've always had it open to out of province, but it is more clearly stated now that we welcome anybody from out of province as well to go into the applicant pool. And there's different numbers that are related to these applicant pools. And that is all clearly stated in the bulletin as of March 1st as well. To practice in Manitoba, you need a PharmD degree, and that is our new degree. We have our first graduates in 2023, I believe, graduating. And yes, I think so. Or 2022, Cheryl. Which one?
23.
23, okay, yes. Those will be our first PharmD graduates completing the PharmD program, which is our new program. They will then still need to write the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada exams, which consist of a written multiple choice exam and a oral exam, which is the objective structured clinical examination. They would then need to complete an internship program in Manitoba. And some of that they're looking at that change right now as well, but you still have to be an intern. And basically you're an intern until you get your results back from the PVC exams. And you need to have strong communication skills in either French or English here in Manitoba. Every year we have a white coat ceremony, except it's a little bit limited this year, this past year because of COVID, but all the students get their white coats. and it welcomes them into the profession of pharmacy. So these are first year students of 2 years ago. This is a look at our new PharmD program. And our first year, it has still a little bit of the sciences. We cover the anatomy and pathophysiology in the first year of the program. Then they go right into any of the pharmacy science type program, which is pharmaceutics, med chem. So I mentioned you needed the chemistry. It's very useful. And pharmaceutical compounding. We do in first year now teach a little bit more in clinical therapeutics, more over-the-counter medications, but some diabetes as well is in that course. And we have what we call the Apple or Applied Pharmacy Practice Labs and a service learning program as well. I coordinate the service learning right now, and I believe that it's good to have an all-round pharmacist graduating. So service learning is in our first and second year. This is our second year. They go more into drug delivery, kinetics, biopharmaceutics as well. So that's all the science part of things. They get more clinical based information as well as nutrition. They do a pharmacy law because you need the pharmacy law to be able to be an intern in Manitoba. So that is done through our program as well. And we do the second year of the Apple program, which is Applied Pharmacy Practice Lab, where it's more hands-on filling prescriptions, counseling patients, and just getting all of the basics around that and looking at therapeutic windows of medications as well. In the second year, we just had students in January go out on their first practical experience. So we call it an IPI. So it's a community experience for them. And then they'll go into hospital starting in June, July, and August of this year, of this coming year. And they'll do 4 weeks in community and 4 weeks in hospital. And the feedback has been very positive. They really enjoyed their community rotations and learned a great deal from them. Our third year of the program, they'll do toxicology, more clinical based courses. Again, you're pretty much done all the sciences. And we've introduced advanced clinical therapeutics, which are advanced cases where they're more complicated. You have a pharmacy practice lab again. You'll go through a little bit of pharmacy management as well. And the last year is all experiential, so it's out in practice. They'll do 8 weeks of community, hospital, a primary care rotation, which is new, and an elective where you can do, you won't be necessarily supervised by a pharmacist. So you can pretty much pick whatever you want to do as long as it's health related. And we expect our students to do a pharmacy research project over this year. And this is the last year of the program. This is just a visual of our compounding lab. This is our pharmaceutical care lab where we do a lot of our patient counseling for practice. And I wish to thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. I think what's really interesting to me and what I note when I work with a lot of students is that many of them don't recognize or realize that there's so many options in pharmacy. I think many students I speak with know about community pharmacy in retail, but not very many would be able to identify the other options that you came up with. And I might have a question at the end that you might have to help me with too, to explain it. But that's super useful. Thanks for sharing that, and also the program. I think when I see the word I don't even know if I can say it, extemporaneous pharmaceutical compounding, I realize that perhaps it's not for me. But anyway, if you can't say it, maybe I shouldn't be it at this point. But anyway, thank you. That's really comprehensive. Okay. I appreciate that. Now, I think Amy can take over now, and she's going to give us an overview of her own experience. And I'm not 100% sure if Amy's also going to address what drew her to the field in the first place, but I'm going to let her take it from here. So.
Okay, I'm just here trying to share my PowerPoint, but it's not working. Let me see here.
Sometimes you just have to be patient with Zoom. It just takes a minute sometimes for it to get to save or to come up there.
I'm not sure I have the skill to help with this.
And shift. Share. Oh, there you go. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Nancy, for that very helpful presentation. So thank you so much for joining us today to learn a little bit about the profession of pharmacy. My name is Amy. I am currently working as a pharmacist at St. Boniface General Hospital. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do as a hospital pharmacist and my journey to where I am today. So just a little bit about myself. I graduated from U of M College of Pharmacy in 2017. And then right after graduation, I went to Mississauga, Ontario to complete a pharmacy residency program. And then right after that, I came back to Winnipeg and started working here. So today I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about what I do and how I got to there. Okay, so how it all started. So when I started university, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something in the healthcare profession. Like I'm sure a lot of you guys are in that boat right now. So I considered multiple options, including medicine, dentistry, respiratory therapy, and pharmacy. So to be honest, when I decided to apply to pharmacy, I had very limited knowledge about the profession of pharmacy, other than seeing the pharmacists who work in community pharmacies like at Shoppers, at Walmart, etc. So I really wish that I knew a little bit more about it before going in, but I still applied for it. And the first time, unfortunately, I didn't get in. And the second time, I was lucky enough to get into the college. Okay, so after getting into pharmacy school, what was it like? Well, like any professional school, it's a lot of stress, lots of exams, projects, and presentations. You really have to be ready to work hard and be the best version of yourself to become a very good pharmacist. But also it was tons of fun in pharmacy school because you get to spend the next 4 years with a small group of class of around 50 people, and you really get to know this group of people, and eventually you get to call them your family. And there are many ways to be involved with extracurricular activities in the college, and I really do encourage people to get involved to be a well-rounded pharmacist, like what Nancy mentioned previously. There are also a lot of amazing mentors at the college who will guide you through difficult times and help you through your journey as a pharmacy student, as well as opportunities to connect with practicing pharmacists through your practicum or rotations. And you will also get to know the practicing pharmacists through participating in the extracurricular activities. So my introduction to hospital pharmacy. Well, actually, I didn't know that pharmacists work in hospital before landing a job as a pharmacy student at St. Boniface General Hospital. So in my first year, I was lucky enough to be hired to work as a pharmacy student at St. Boniface Hospital. And I mainly worked alongside pharmacy assistants and technicians to learn about the drug distribution side of things, not so much the clinical side, but I did have the opportunity to shadow pharmacists working in the hospital at that time, and they gave me a better idea of what pharmacists do in the hospital. And in a blink of eye, 4 years flew by, and it was time to decide what I wanted to do after graduation. So I really only considered two options, hospital versus community pharmacy, because um, those are the two areas that I was most familiar with. And I wanted to pursue hospital pharmacy because of my experience working as a pharmacy student in the hospital. So I decided to apply for a pharmacy residency program across Canada. And I was lucky enough to land a position at the Trillium Health Partners in Mississauga as a hospital pharmacy resident. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the residency program, but in a nutshell, it's 1 year of intense training in hospital pharmacy, and it is to prepare pharmacists to work in an advanced setting in a hospital. So residency was very, very challenging. We had to rotate to a new specialty every 4 weeks. And on top of that, we had presentations and research projects, and also had to precept or teach students. But in the end, it was very rewarding because it helped me to transition into a staff pharmacist much quicker and much easier. So after 1 year of residency, I decided to move back to Winnipeg, and I accepted a position at HSC and as a staff pharmacist. And I mainly rotated through the internal medicine and the general surgery units. And then after 1 year, I decided to move over to St. Boniface Hospital. And currently I work mainly on the cardiology units and the ICU units. So I see a lot of patients after heart attacks, patients who suffer from heart failures, and other conditions related to the heart. In the ICU, that's quite self-explanatory. I see patients who require organ support, and I work with a great group of individuals to provide the best care to these patients. So next, I will just go into a little bit of detail about what I do on a day-to-day basis. So I usually get to work at 7:30, that's our start time, bright and early. So what I do is I always look over the patients who have been there for the past few days or the past few weeks and follow up on anything that changed overnight, and follow up on any new medication that were started and any new lab works that were done. And then I gather information about the new admissions from overnight so that I'm prepared to participate in morning rounds and bring up any issues I may have with this patient's care. So after that, we start morning rounds usually around 9 a.m. So we round with an interdisciplinary team that includes the attending doctor, multiple resident doctors, and also the respiratory therapist, if that's in the ICU setting, the dietitian, and the charge nurse, the bedside nurse, and the pharmacist. So we go through each patient in detail, talk about their issues and any concerns from any of the team members. So rounds usually last about 2 to 3 hours. So that's usually the whole morning until lunchtime. And then throughout the day, I have to process medication orders because the doctor orders the medications, but we have to get the medication to the nurse so the nurse can give the medication and follow up on any medication orders that need to be clarified with the doctors. And if I'm working on a cardiology unit where it's patients mostly after heart attacks or from heart failure, there's lots of people going home every day from the hospital. So I have to complete discharge prescriptions for them and counsel them about their new medications. And I also liaise with the community pharmacies to make sure they have received the prescription and that there's no questions on their end. So we provide seamless care to the patient from the hospital to the community. So we work closely with lots of community pharmacists. And throughout the day, I answer questions from other healthcare professionals, mostly doctors, who have questions about what's the best therapy for this condition, or if there's any dosing adjustments we need to make for the patient, and lots of other questions. So common pharmacy-related issues that a hospital pharmacist deals with on a day-to-day basis. These are just some examples. So inappropriate drug regimen. So as you're aware, there's thousands of drugs out there. Even for type 2 diabetes, there's so many drugs on the market, but what is the best drug for this patient? So that's what we deal with. Drug dosing and adjustments, something we deal with all the time. So lots of drugs need to be, dosing need to be adjusted according to the patient's kidney or liver function. Drug allergies. So we see lots of people come in with penicillin allergies, and that prevent us giving the medications that is a type of penicillin. So as a pharmacist, I have to figure out if this allergy is a true allergy or is it just an adverse reaction. Drugs in pregnancy and lactation. So we get phone calls all the time about whether a drug is safe in a pregnant woman or if the drug is safe in breastfeeding. Affordability of certain medications. So drugs are very expensive, and we can prescribe all the drugs we want in hospital, but if the patient can't afford it in the community, then there's really no point in prescribing the medication. So as a pharmacist, I have to make sure they can actually purchase the medication if they have any drug plans, and if there's any help we can provide to them in terms of affordability. And lastly, drug interactions. So not all those drugs can be used together. Some of them are contraindicated, so we have to come up with alternatives. And there's many other issues we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So on top of our day-to-day activities, we also precept students. So like Nancy mentioned previously, we take students on their rotations, and we teach them and help them to, to one day become a pharmacist. We also work on improvement projects within the pharmacy department, and we also do presentations from time to time. So every job comes with its pros and cons. I'm not saying that my job is perfect. There are definitely days that are better than others, and there are days I love my job, and there are days I don't like it as much. But overall, I think being a hospital pharmacist is the best job for me, and that's because I really enjoy working closely with other healthcare professionals. I enjoy the team approach to patient care. And also being there for patients during difficult times, especially during this time where loved ones cannot visit. So, someone who is very young comes in with a heart attack, this is a major life change for them, and they have to be on 5+ medications going home. So as a pharmacist, I want to make sure they understand the purpose of each medication and why they have to take them, and if they can afford it. And constantly being challenged during my job is one thing I love as well. It keeps me going. It challenges me to learn every day. Like Nancy said, pharmacists really have to be lifelong learners. There's always new evidence. There's always new drugs coming on the market. So if we just stop what we learned in school, that's never enough. So every day I need to, look things up and learn things on my own. And lastly, utilizing my clinical knowledge in every patient case, that kind of goes in hand with learning every day and constantly being challenged at work. So Nancy already kind of talked about this, but I just want to emphasize that being a community pharmacist or hospital pharmacist are not the only two options you have when you become a pharmacist. There's lots of other opportunities out there for industry. So you can work in pharmaceutical companies. Ontario actually has industry residencies that they take pharmacists, and they do 1-year residency in the pharmaceutical company. Insurance companies also hire pharmacists, and of course, teaching and research are also great opportunities. So yeah, my advice to you is really just to learn more about the what a pharmacist does. And I know Career Services has great resources for that. And shadow a pharmacist and see if you can imagine yourself doing this job in 10 years, in 20 years. That's probably the most important thing when you're deciding which healthcare profession you want to go into. And that's all for me. Thank you for listening.
Wow, Amy, it's exhausting listening to the scope of your duties. That's my head hurts just listening to what you have to do. I can't imagine actually doing it. So thanks for sharing that. Again, I think those are activities or job duties that people wouldn't necessarily anticipate at first blush. So I think it's so important for people to understand the scope of the positions or the profession. So, yeah, and it seems, I might be incorrect, but it seems that the duties or even the whole job of a community pharmacist sounds different than a hospital pharmacist, but I'm sure there's lots of similarities, but it seems even relationships to people and things like that. Now, I could ask a million questions, but I guess it'll be time for the students to ask questions first. And Amy, thanks for sharing that. It sounds like you gave a really comprehensive overview of what you do, and even your trying twice. Good for you. Like that's important. It's a competitive world, right? And I'm sure Cheryl sees that every day. Yeah. So the other thing I really appreciated is when you said the years flew by, and I deal with that often with students where you're looking before you start, and it looks like it's going to take forever. But I think once you're in it, and you're doing it, and it includes experiential learning as part of the program, it often does fly by. So I think that was a great statement to make. So anyway, I have some questions here. So there's one question, and I think Cheryl might be called in here, but might be Nancy. Can we apply with the previous chemistry courses, Chem 1300 and 1310?
Sorry, yes, I did put.
Oh, you answered it there.
So yeah, you can use the old chemistry courses, which is the 1300 and 1310. However, since those are only worth 6 credit hours, if you do that route, then you will need to have 15 credit hours of the other courses rather than the 12 to ensure that your total is the 48 credit hours. Okay.
And there was the question prior that I think you addressed, Cheryl, but it was about the requirements, the admission requirements, I think it was the PCAT. And
so beginning for fall 2022, the new criteria will be based just on AGPA, which will be worth 75%, and then the CASPER test, which will be worth 25%. So for fall 2022, we will not be using the PCAT or the written critical skills essay.
So those are substantial changes, it sounds like, in the program. Yeah. Another, I'm just taking a quick look at these. In terms of maybe whoever wants to jump into this question, in terms of working with patients or patients, I'm not sure in a community pharmacy if you call them patients. Yes, that's how it goes. Could you describe a little bit, maybe both Nancy and Amy, a little bit when we talk about counseling people, what those relationships look like? Is it strictly about the drugs and the drug interactions and or does it get into broader type counseling?
It depends how much time you take with the patient. And I know that when I first started practicing, we weren't supposed to talk to patients. So things have changed substantially. So it's much better now. And I haven't practiced for about a year, but when I used to practice, I would find out all sorts of things about people because everything about that person affects their healthcare. It affects whether or not they'll take medications, mental health issues, all of those things come into play as well. So it's not just sitting there talking about, here, you take this so many times a day and you're going to get these side effects. You really have to go into more with the patient and just to determine kind of how they're managing themselves as well. If they have a new diagnosis of cancer, it's going to take a lot longer to sit and talk with them. So Amy, anything to add there?
Yeah, I agree with Nancy, what Nancy said. So it's not just be like, these are the medications you're going home on after a heart attack, and these are the reasons why. We always talk about like, how do you feel about these changes? And oftentimes you're like, well, obviously I'm overwhelmed. But, and then, you know, then we go through like, oh, what kind of, you know, obstacles do you have at home that may prevent you from taking these medications? And they're like, well, I can't drive for a month after a heart attack, and that's my job, so I won't have money. So then those are kind of things we have to work through before they go home. And we'll relay that message onto the community pharmacists as well, so we're all on the same page, and you know, they can have that support when they're out of the hospital as well.
I personally know people who've been able to form very close relationships with their community pharmacists because they are such frequent visitors to the pharmacy, and they really become they come to rely on the support and the information that they get from their pharmacist. So that seems like an important relationship in both cases, for sure. So thank you for that. Looks like we maybe have a few questions more. I think Cheryl can see them about the credit hours again and which ones are counted.
There's also a question there for Amy as well.
What kind of specialties did you cover during your residency in Ontario? So I did a general residency program. Right now, there's actually in the past few years, we have came up with a specialized residency program where that's more of a second year residency. So for me, it was a general residency. I had mandatory rotations in like internal medicine, cardiology, infectious disease. Those are mandatory rotations. And then I did elective rotations in oncology, and emergency. That was also a mandatory rotation, and teaching rotation is also mandatory. I think those are the ones I have done.
Perfect. That's great. Does anyone have, any of our speakers have information about people who might go to a different country to study pharmacy and then come back to Canada to practice?
If you leave the country to practice in another, to do your education in another country, you still have to write the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada exams, but you will also have to write a previous exam than the, you have 3 exams rather than 2 exams to write, because you have to have your, and you have to also have your credentials reviewed as well to see if they meet the requirements here.
Okay. Okay. So there, it's a little bit more to, more hoops to jump through, I guess I would say.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. I'm just going to make sure. I have a question. It's about chemistry. So I often work with students and they say they're not keen on chemistry, but they want to be pharmacists. What message would anyone have for them?
I don't think you have to know chemistry and love chemistry. I personally did. My dad was a chemistry teacher,
Okay.
so I was raised chemistry from a very young age. But it might be a little bit more challenging. You just have to be able to work really hard at it and study hard and have good study habits. But you don't have to love chemistry. It helps. Anything to add, Amy?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if chemistry is not your forte, the medicinal chemistry course is going to be difficult. But then otherwise, the other courses are not very chemistry based. They're more of like therapeutic based. Like you have to be good at critical appraisal and critical thinking to be good at those courses. But medicinal chemistry may be a bit challenging.
Okay. Does biology play a huge role, or microbiology?
Yeah, I think
It
so.
doesn't hurt. We have lots of students coming through that have microbiology degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think they find some areas a little bit easier than other areas, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. you just have to have that science base more than anything.
Okay. I have another question. A couple of years ago, I went over to my pharmacist and got a flu shot. And that was the first time I had done that. And I said to the pharmacist, oh, do you like doing this? Because, you know, in my head, I thought, well, maybe some people choose pharmacy because they don't want to do that. And the pharmacist indicated, no, they really enjoy, I don't know how you would enjoy giving flu shot, but I guess some people do, like they like the interaction or the opportunity. Can you anticipate things that are changing in the scope, or could somebody tell us a little bit about where this might be going and how the position or the profession might be changing?
Well, I think pharmacy is heading towards giving COVID shots as well. That's not
Yep.
far away at all. I don't personally like giving shots. I close my eyes, which is not a good thing to do. So I don't do it, but it's just another part of our scope of practice that is increasing. Why shouldn't we be giving flu shots? We can do it. We're quite capable of doing it. And we are a very accessible healthcare field.
Yes. Yeah.
So why would we not try to immunize more people? And I think we're going to see more and more with our prescribing abilities happening and increasing. And you're going to see more and more time with your pharmacist. That's the hope anyway.
Yes, I agree.
Perfect. It seems to me like there is a perfect setup if people are just in communities, and it's easier to go there. So so that's great. I had another question that's really pragmatic. Do almost all pharmacists at some point work shifts?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
When you start as a new pharmacist, you don't really get to choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but there are jobs out there, like for example, the primary care pharmacists who work in the access clinics, they only work Monday to Friday, like kind of 9 to 5 job.
Okay.
But in hospital, yeah, like there are night shifts at HSC, but we do shift work as well.
And you'll find that in community pharmacy as well. Why would you get day shifts only when everyone else has to work all the shifts? So pharmacies are open, 12, 18 hours. It depends on the pharmacies. The 24-hour stores are closed now, but we used to have to work overnights as well. So
cool. So shift work could impact your work-life balance or your family life at some point, I guess. There's a person that's interested. So it's good to know up ahead of time when you go into it that would be an expectation in many cases.
Yeah. I see a question here. Is it possible to be family orientated with a pharmacy career? Absolutely. I was a pharmacy owner. I owned my own pharmacy and I had 2 children and was a single parent.
Oh.
I also decided to go back to school at that time and get my master's in business administration. So it was a lot of balancing, but it can be done. But, even with shift work, you can still work around your family quite easily, because I would work some days and some evenings. Even when I owned the store, I was still able to get to soccer games and things like that. So.
Cool. Amy?
Yeah, I agree. I think the advantage is with shift work is that there's always someone coming to take over your work. So you can go home without thinking about work too much.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that actually. That you don't have to go home and worry about it till you come back to your shift or stay until it's resolved all the time. Yeah, that's interesting. It looks like there's still some questions about admissions here. And I had a question, and this is maybe not a fair one, but a lot of times students describe to me that they want to be a pharmacist, and then they say, I want to be involved in the development of new drugs. And to me, it could be industrial pharmacy, I guess, but I think they're describing pharmacology. Could someone confirm that or describe what a pharmacologist? I know it's not but I suspect you have some knowledge of what they do.
Yeah, pharmacologists, they're studying how the drugs kind of work in the body as well. So what you're more describing is somebody who might want to do some research. They don't need to be a pharmacist to do that, or they might go into industry. So do you know anybody, Amy, that?
I know there's a job title called clinical pharmacologist, and they're not necessarily a pharmacist. Like in the hospital setting, I have seen a doctor consulting a clinical pharmacologist only once, but I don't really know too much about what their job entails, but they're not a pharmacist.
Okay, it just, I think because the admission requirements are so dramatically different for a master's and a PhD, for example, than a PharmD program now, that sometimes, you know how first year can be a little challenging sometimes as you get used to university. And but usually for graduate school, we're looking at typically the last 60 credit hours, which might lend itself to pharmacology if that's really what you anticipated in the first place, if that's the occupation. So it's good to distinguish and make sure you know what the differences are between those occupations, I would say. Amy, when you were describing a normal day for you, it sounded like your head is just full of information. Would you say you have a great memory, or is that critical for this occupation?
I think so. I think for any healthcare profession, you need to know a lot. There's just so much to know. Like, I would love to say that I know everything about pharmacy, but I don't think I will ever be able to say that in my lifetime. There's just so much to learn. And the fact that you should be able to remember something you looked up in case it comes up again next time, that memory definitely plays a vital role. But, you know, I don't remember everything I look up either. So that's why there's always resources out there to help us.
I guess the internet has made a difference in people's lives too, in terms of looking things up.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions on admissions here as well. So recommend preparing for the critical skills essay. There's not too much you can do to prepare. My suggestion is to practice writing under a time crunch. You'll be given a proposition. You'll have like a reading and a proposition. So you don't know what it is. And it's just a matter of really explaining very clearly how you feel, either, you know, right or wrong against this proposition. So there's not too much you can do. Just practice writing, I would say, under time crunch, and that would help a little bit. Amy, you wrote the essay, so.
Yeah, I think the like timing yourself is very important, because I don't remember how long do you get, but it's very stressful environment that you have to write on this topic that you may never even heard of, and then you have to take a position and defend yourself.
And I think that's the challenge, is taking a position. So lots of times I've read essays that were, well, I agree with this, but I disagree, but I agree and I disagree. And it's just like, no, make a decision and follow it up and really, you know, stand by the decision that you made.
It probably wouldn't hurt like to consult with the Academic Learning Center on campus because they do the writing skills. So there might be some utility, if you're thinking about it, to even reference them, like how do I write an effective argumentative essay, for example, just so you're a little bit on it ahead of it's not time to learn how to do that the day before you have to do it, I think. So just give yourself a little bit more time. I've had a lot of people asking, there's no interview, right? Can we confirm there's no interview involved here?
Not
right.
at this time.
Cheryl says there's no interview, thumbs up. So, okay. But the Casper kind of gets at some of those types of skills, I think. Eh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people can do something like even look up the Casper, search it online so you're aware of what it is. I think it's really common now. Even the Red River programs are requiring the Casper now as well. So the
Medicine
medical
is
lab
using Casper as well. And yeah, the best thing probably to do is just to Google it, and it'll show you samples of what to expect.
Yeah, and I believe a person asked, like, what is it? And I believe it tries to measure emotional intelligence. I'm not 100% sure on that.
And just so you know, there are potentially some changes coming to Casper in the next few months. So if you are planning to do that, you may want to check back their website in a few months as well.
Perfect. There is a question here about once you're in a PharmD program, is there a lot of essay writing? or in a pharmacy program? I don't know, Amy, if you had to write a lot of essays when you were in it, or Nancy.
I think I only wrote an essay in first year, but it's a lot of other kind of stress that's not related to essay writing.
Do you want to expand on that, or is that?
Well, you know, we have like virtual exams where you have to, you know, a patient comes in, you have to come up with a solution within like 15 minutes, and then there's the instructor grading you behind a mirror. So that's really stressful. I think compared to essay, like those kind of exams are more stressful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in the new program, we've got a lot of self-reflection going on as well. I teach a 1-week course on intro to pharmacy, and we do a lot of self-reflecting during that week on how we feel about things. And then it's continued into the first year of the skills lab course, where so you're writing a lot of reflections on what you did basically and how you could do it better. So we have incorporated a little bit more, not essay writing, but more written component to it as well.
Okay. I guess these days we need to be well-rounded generally. You can't just be a science person or just a writing person or anything like that. Once you're in the program, the grades are graded, or are they a pass-fail?
They're still graded.
Okay, that makes sense.
There are some courses like the service learning is a pass-fail. My first year 1-week course is a pass-fail. So, and the experiential are pass-fail. So it's a combination, but the majority of them are still graded.
Okay. Nancy, this is going back a bit for you, but when you owned your own drugstore, what were the surprises that nobody would anticipate? Like what did that look like to you?
Well, I think just dealing with the human resource part of things,
Okay.
I recognized I needed to improve on that a lot. I actually owned my pharmacy while I did my master's in business administration. So the combination of the two really helped me a lot. I learned as I was doing, and that was, I wouldn't recommend that to everybody. It was kind of stressful on the 2 kids.
Yeah.
You know, Amy talks about stress. That was a lot of stress for me as well. But you know what, I really enjoyed owning my own pharmacy as well, and the challenges that it had. But most of the challenges I had were kind of HR issues, the human resource part of things.
Okay. Which I guess you'd have to have a lot of staffing for all the positions in a Shoppers. Yeah. There's a question about the CASPER different from the critical skills assessment. Can someone help me with that?
Yeah, the critical skills assessment is a written component at this point, and we will be moving to CASPER, which if you look it up online, it is different. Oh, and Cheryl Lee has put in the link for CASPER, and you can look there. So it is different.
Seems like there's a great deal of change in healthcare occupations right now. Curricula are changing, and which makes sense, they should. But I think as a student looking at what I need, and if it changes, then you gotta keep up with it. It sounds like so.
Mm-hmm. Lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning, yeah. There's a question about where you'll be able to find the recording of this session. It'll be, look at Career Services website. And the interesting thing is that there'll be a number of them. There's a few that weren't recorded, but I believe we had 15 sessions. I might have made that number up. But if you're exploring healthcare generally, there'd be a lot of utility in looking at other ones. Our big book of occupations in Canada that we use, it's called the National Occupational Classification, or the NOC. It puts pharmacy in a category aligned with nutrition and dietetics as kind of parallel occupations. And I believe it's maybe because it's what you put in your body and what impact it has on you, that those two go together. But of course, there's some dramatic differences in terms of the occupations once you're in it. But if you wanted to explore other options like that, or even medical lab tech options, genetic counseling options, I believe we have a lot online as well, and they'll be recorded as well. So yeah, there you go. The link is right there. early March. So I'm going to wait for a second and see if anyone else has questions. I would love to pick the brains more, but I think those are the questions I have, not that the students have. So it's interesting, as I was working yesterday with a student, and the student said, wow, every session I go to, I want to be that. So I suspect we're messing people up too as we go along, but there's just a few other things I'll say here. Who's going to wants to become only, yeah, there's some questions just about if you're good at this but not good at that, should you look at a different occupation? I think that if someone's in that situation, so this is for everybody, if you're in a situation where you're not sure that you have the skill set that seems to be required in this occupation, then I would take a visit to Career Services, and we can talk to you about your preferences, and we can also talk to you about other options. I'm not sure in Canada an option just to pick another school in another province is necessarily a great one, because I believe they're all probably quite competitive. So, and oddly, there aren't that many. There aren't that many schools of pharmacy or faculties of pharmacy or colleges in Canada. So there's more. Cheryl, I don't know if you're busy there on your own there doing a lot of
Sorry,
questions.
yes, I am answering some questions that are coming just to me.
Yeah.
So in terms of Casper, I don't believe they have the dates yet, but our understanding from them is that there will be many different options. I think they usually start them in about August, and then there are many different options from kind of August on, typically. So the new bulletin, it'll be sometime in the beginning of March is the plan. So in a few weeks, we hope to have the new bulletin up.
Perfect. There's a question about the PharmD program, and if is there some flexibility for the 4-year research project in terms of where it can be done, I guess?
The research project they're just looking at right now, so I really can't say if there'll be flexibility to go out of Canada or not. The elective in the past, students have gone out to different parts of the world, but I think that is going to probably be a little bit more stringent now because it's part of the experiential program. And so I'm not sure what the elective is, but you can kind of look at the course outlines and kind of see what the recommendations are. So I'm not sure at this point if they're going to limit leaving Canada or not.
Perfect. So there's still a little bit up in the air, or if you have specific questions, you'll have to check in with pharmacy, maybe with Cheryl, I think would be. Or I don't know.
I think like Nancy indicated, it will be different than what was in the bachelor program. The bachelor program, it was a lot more open. This will be, a lot more research focused. So, I mean, there will be some flexibility on just the different options that you select, but I'm not sure that you would be able to go internationally at this point. We'll have to see. Like Nancy said, they're finalizing that because that course hasn't started yet. That's still 2 years off.
Okay. And just one question, like sometimes we apply to something once, we don't get in, and we learn a lot from the application. Is there a limit to the amount of times you can apply, or is it like a confidential blind application each time?
Yeah.
Okay, so no limit.
You can apply as many times as you want, and every year it's going to be a totally new process, right?
Okay.
Yeah, someone in my class got in on his 5th try.
Well, that's dogged determination, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, that person wanted to be. Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard that across the board for competitive programs that sometimes it's probably good to have a parallel plan so that you might work, for example, while you're applying. Or of course, if you don't get in, then it's always useful to figure out why you didn't get in and then work on that. Right, and we can help with that too at Career Services. I think we're running out of time and we're losing some people here. So I'm going to take just a minute here, I hope.
I'm just not sure what that one question means. Can I apply with chemistry courses like 1300, 1310? And
Not
other
sure.
STEP 1000? Can you maybe clarify that question? So you could use, like I indicated before, you could use the 1300 and 1310, but then you would need an additional 3 credit course. But I'm not sure what you mean by other stat 1000.
I don't know if you're getting a response there, Cheryl.
Hi, I'm just want to know that if I do the chemistry course and the math course and the other 3 courses in the chat box, I have seen that you guys are saying that you can apply with chemistry course and other 3 courses. Like, what are those courses? The other, what kind of courses? Like math course?
If you have the old chemistry courses, then you will need one more additional 3 credit hour course, but that would be an open course. So you could take anything just to make up those 3 credit hours.
Okay, so how many total credit hour I have to complete to apply?
So it's a total of 48.
Total 48.
Yeah.
Okay. No, so get into in pharmacy, total 48 course.
Yes, that will be beginning for fall 2022.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. I suspect that if you have like more complex questions about admissions, that you can always be in touch with Cheryl or perhaps the admissions office. I'm not sure what the most direct route is, but it sounds like sometimes these can be quite complicated. So it's good to get great information from the source. So just as we wind up, I'm just going to reiterate career services up on the 4th floor of University Center. We do a lot of things. A lot of students think we just wait till you graduate and then help you find a job. And we do post jobs on a website or on a portal called Career Connect. We also host a ton of different activities like this. So you can access Career Connect with your UMNet ID. Every student has an account, whether you know it or not. So we do help with employment. We help you find volunteer roles. We do assessment. What are you interested in? What are you good at? What's your personality like? To help you come up with options you may not have considered. And you know, there's a lot out there. We all know there's a lot out there, but we don't necessarily know what it is. So we can help you discover it. There's different services. We have our website, U of M student/career services. If you do need resume assistance, and here's my word my word of advice is don't let your friends critique your resume unless they're professionals, okay? So before you send out that resume, it never hurts to get some feedback. So you can just send your resume and job posting to us at this website, and we can help you. So don't worry about the Monday to Friday, 9 to 4, just anytime. You can attend workshops like this. You can attend workshops on LinkedIn. You can go to speaker sessions on a variety of different things. And those are all posted on Career Connect. If you feel you need some career help, career counseling, we'll call it, if you're not sure of your goal or you want to make sure you have a secondary plan in place, then just phone or email us and book an appointment with a career consultant. We also have the Career Mentor Program, which I love. It's been running for over 30 years. And if you think you might want to be a pharmacist, then make sure you speak with a pharmacist, okay? I always say it's just imperative that we know what we're applying for. And so if you've never even spoken to a pharmacist or a genetic counselor or a health policy analyst or an insurance broker or whatever you might want to be, then let us send you to see somebody so you can ask them questions. And so you have a better idea of what the occupation is. And that program this year is being run virtually. If you're interested in it, you could contact our office or just look on our website and you'll see more information about it. So to me, that's about as valuable a program as you can get. Because as I said, a lot of students have a lot of self-knowledge. They just need help connecting it to the world of work, right? So consider the Career Mentor Program. You only have to meet the person once. We're not setting you up for a lifelong relationship. So because if you don't actually like the occupation, we want you to move on and come up with some other ideas. We do have occupational profiles online. This is an example of our pharmacist profile. And you can see there's quite a bit of information. Oh, sorry, I scrolled the wrong place. I'm trying so hard to do this correctly, but there we go. So there's a lot of information about becoming a pharmacist. There'll be job market information, and you'll see on the right sidebar, there'll be information here about occupations you might also want to consider if you're considering becoming a pharmacist. So that's where you might be introduced to being a pharmacologist or a respiratory therapist and all these things that no one tells you to be in grade 11 when you're good at science. You know, those ones don't come up. So if you want more information, the thing up here in the Holland Code is also interesting. That's one of the tools we use for helping students make career decisions. This Holland Code is saying pharmacists have depth of information. They're conventional, which means they're usually pretty organized and they like to follow a protocol. I don't know if that's true, but I hope so. That they like to follow the rules that are in place, and also that they're helpers or social. So not just social, like I like meeting people, but social, I like helping people. That's what the Holland Code is. If you have any interest in that, let me know. Again, just contact our office. And that seems to be there we go. Our last slide. There's a number of other mentoring programs on campus too. So the Career Mentor Program, which I mentioned, is here. The Faculty of Science has a program. There's programs, new student mentorship program. The Rady Faculty of Health Sciences has a mentorship program. The St. Boniface Hospital does job shadowing. Right now, I don't believe it's in action, but that program has been very helpful too for students. And then the Rural Health Mentorship Program. If you want any information about mentoring programs, just let us know. I would encourage you to not be a stranger. Like if you need help, get help. And we're always very happy to try and find you an occupational match or to help you excel and get the information you need. So looks like Nancy has sent a message to us all too. So it looks like it's a close-knit college that once you're in there, you work together. And I suspect you would stay in touch probably throughout the life. That's right, lifelong friends. So yeah, when you're in those intense situations, I think that often happens. So at this point, it's almost past lunch. I want to say thanks to Nancy and Cheryl and Amy. I know everybody is super busy. This remote access isn't my preference. Thanks for jumping in and doing it. And if anybody has questions going forward, please let me know. Just look at the Career Services website or contact Elizabeth Boyle. I'm always happy to help. And at this point, I'll say thank you so much. Thank you, speakers. It's been great. And good luck and enjoy the rest of your break if you're a student. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.